Lyra lived in a pocket of the world, woven from gentle starlight and the soft sighs of ancient trees. Her village, Whisperwood, was exactly as its name suggested. A cluster of moss-roofed cottages nestled so deeply within the whispering woods that it felt like the forest itself had breathed them into existence. Here, the air always smelled of damp earth, sweet honeysuckle, and the faint, comforting scent of hearth smoke. Magic wasn't a spectacle in Whisperwood. It was the quiet hum of life, the sparkle of dew on a spiderweb that held the morning sun in miniature rainbows, the way the elderberries ripened with an almost urgent glow after a warm rain. Lyra herself was a quiet child, with eyes the color of sun-dappled moss and hair like spun moonlight. She wasn't one for boisterous games with the other village children, preferring instead to spend her afternoons tracing the delicate patterns on a moth's wing or listening to the secret murmurings of the ancient riverstones. She knew the names of every glow moss patch in the woods, could distinguish the call of a twilight songbird from a far-off night owl, and understood that the rustling of leaves wasn't just wind, but the trees sharing their oldest stories. Her favorite place, beyond the immediate village perimeter, was a small hidden glade known only to her. It was where the oldest, tallest whispering oak stood, its branches reaching like gnarled arms towards the heavens, its bark etched with patterns that seemed to shift and change with the light. Here, she felt the pulse of the world most strongly, a deep, resonant thrumming beneath her bare feet. Most evenings, Lyra could be found by the hearth of her grandmother, Ilara's cottage. Ilara was the heart of Whisperwood, her face a roadmap of gentle smiles and ancient wisdom, her hands gnarled from years of tending her herb garden and weaving the finest dream catchers from spun moonbeam silk. Her stories were famous throughout the village, tales of the first starflowers, of rivers that sang lullabies to the moon, of lost melodies that could mend broken hearts or wake sleeping mountains. Come, little star seed, Ilara would say, her voice like the gentle rustle of leaves, as Lyra helped her sort the evening's harvest of moonberries and slumber roots. Tell me what secrets the woods whispered to you today. Lyra would recount her day's observations, a family of sprite moths nesting in a bellflower, a new patch of singing mushrooms blooming after the rain, the way the forest floor seemed to breathe in and out with the passing clouds. Ilara would listen, her eyes twinkling, occasionally adding a detail Lyra hadn't noticed, a deeper layer to the forest's quiet magic. One evening, as the sky outside deepened into a velvety indigo, and the first glowworms began to speckle the forest edge with their soft light, Lyra felt a peculiar stir in the air. It wasn't a chill, nor a scent, but a feeling, like a distant bell ringing just beneath the surface of hearing. She paused, a handful of shimmering moonberries forgotten in her small palm. "Grandmother," she murmured, her gaze drawn to the window, where the silhouette of the whispering woods stood stark against the dying light. "Do you hear it?" Ilara, who was stirring a pot of star-petal tea over the hearth, paused, her spoon hovering. She listened, her brow furrowed slightly. "Hear what, my dear?" Lyra said, trying to put words to the sensation. "Like the deepest root of the whispering oak, but higher and far away." Ilara's gaze followed Lyra's to the window. The glowworms outside pulsed gently, but beyond them, deep within the tangled heart of the woods, a new light was beginning to bloom. It was not the familiar soft luminescence of the forest's many magical flora. This was a clearer, purer light, a faint, ethereal blue that seemed to pulse with a slow, steady rhythm, like a sleeping heart. It was too far to truly illuminate anything, but its presence was undeniable, a beacon drawing the eye. Lyra had lived her whole life on the edge of these woods, had explored their paths and glades since she could walk. She knew their every secret, every nook and cranny. But she had never seen a light like this. "That," Ilara said softly, her voice now holding a note of profound wonder, "is new." The blue light deepened, shimmering like a distant jewel. It wasn't strong enough to cast shadows, but it seemed to pull at Lyra's very being, a gentle, insistent tug deep in her chest. It resonated with the faint hum she felt, like two parts of a forgotten melody finding each other across the miles. "What is it?" Lyra whispered, mesmerized. Ilara sighed, a sound filled with both curiosity and a touch of wistfulness. "I do not know, little one, not truly. My grandmother spoke of such a light, in tales I thought were only for dreams. She called it the Lumina Song." Lyra turned from the window, her eyes wide. The Lumina song. Is it a song? Elara shook her head gently. Aye. Not a song for ears, perhaps, or not one we remember how to hear. More a feeling, a presence, a forgotten melody of the world itself, made visible. She took Lyra's hand, her touch warm and reassuring. Come, the star-petal tea is ready, and tonight I think we need a special story. As they sat by the fire, the blue light outside pulsed faintly through the window, an unspoken presence in the cozy cottage. Elara poured the tea, its steam curling in fragrant spirals. Then she began to speak, her voice weaving a tapestry of words that seemed to resonate with the strange light outside. Long, long ago, Elara began, her gaze fixed on the dancing flames. Before even the whispering oak was a sapling, before the rivers learned their names, the world was filled with the great silence. It was a time of stillness, of waiting. But deep within the heart of the world, a spark of light stirred. And that spark was not just light, Lyra, it was also sound. A single pure note, sung by the very first starflower as it bloomed in the primordial dark. Lyra leaned closer, enchanted. This note, Elara continued, was the first whisper of life, the beginning of all things. As it vibrated, it created more notes, more light. Each new creature, each new mountain, each new stream added its own unique note to the growing chorus. And together, they formed a magnificent melody, a symphony of existence that echoed through the cosmos. This was the Lumina song. But what happened to it? Lyra asked, her voice barely a breath. As time wore on, as the world grew louder with the clamor of daily life, with worries and hurried footsteps, the world began to forget how to listen. The Lumina song didn't cease to be, Lyra. It simply retreated, growing fainter, softer, until only the deepest roots of the oldest trees and the oldest hearts of the wisest folk could remember its echo. It became a legend, a lullaby whispered to generations, a light seen only in the rarest of dreams. Elara paused, taking a slow sip of her tea. They say that when the world is in need, when the balance shifts, or when a heart is pure enough to truly listen, the Lumina song sometimes stirs. It awakens, a quiet call, a gentle beckoning, a reminder of what was and what could be again. Lyra looked back at the window. The blue light was still there, a soft, insistent throb in the heart of the woods. It looked just like Elara had described, a forgotten melody made visible. A quiet call, a gentle beckoning, how? And it seemed to be beckoning to her. Sleep did not come easily to Lyra that night. The blue light from the woods pulsed behind her eyelids, a luminous counterpoint to the memory of Elara's story. The Lumina song. It wasn't just a tale, it felt like a living thing, a presence that had now made itself known. The hum she had felt earlier now resonated with an almost unbearable sweetness in her chest, a yearning she couldn't name. She tried to close her eyes to drift into the familiar comfort of sleep, but the world outside her window felt too alive, too full of unspoken possibility. Every whisper of the wind through the eaves sounded like a faint note, every creak of the old house like a rhythmic beat. The moon, a sliver of silver light, cast long, dancing shadows across her bedroom floor, turning familiar objects into shadowy, intriguing shapes. Finally, unable to bear the restless energy that coursed through her, Lyra slipped out of bed. Her bare feet made no sound on the cool wooden floor. She moved to the window, pushing aside the woven curtain. The blue light was still there, perhaps even a little brighter now, a steady ethereal glow emanating from the deepest part of the whispering woods. It wasn't alarming, not frightening at all. It was intensely inviting. It felt like a promise, whispered just for her. A memory surfaced, unbidden. It was from a dream she'd had years ago, a dream she'd almost forgotten. In it, she was standing in a clearing, surrounded by trees that hummed with light, and in the center, a single flower, impossibly bright, pulsed with a melody that filled her entire being. She had woken up with a feeling of profound peace, and a quiet sense of loss that the music had faded. Now, looking at the blue light, she felt that same melody stirring, just at the edge of her hearing. She knew with a certainty that settled deep into her bones that she had to go. Not to seek danger, but to simply listen. To follow the hum. To see if the Lumina song was truly awakening. Carefully, Lyra dressed in her warmest tunic and softest leggings. She grabbed her small satchel, stuffing in a handful of sun-dried berries, a smooth riverstone she always carried for luck, and a small, intricately carved wooden bird that Ilara had given her. It wasn't much, but it felt right. She slipped out of her cottage, the moon a gentle guardian overhead. The village was utterly silent, asleep under the watchful eye of the stars. The glowworms at the edge of the forest seemed to pulse a little more brightly as she approached, as if welcoming her. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Stepping under the canopy of the whispering woods, Lyra felt an immediate shift. The world inside was different from the world outside. Here, the darkness was not absolute, but softened by 1,000 tiny lights. Bioluminescent mosses clung to tree trunks, casting a soft green glow. Fireflies danced in intricate patterns, their brief flashes like tiny winking eyes. The path beneath her feet was not just dirt, but a carpet of fallen leaves and soft, springy moss. The hum grew stronger here, a subtle vibration that ran through the ground and up into her feet, resonating in her chest. It was a comforting hum, like a mother's heartbeat, guiding her deeper into the woods. She didn't feel afraid. The forest had always been a friend, a confidant. Tonight, it felt like an ancient relative, patiently waiting for her to come home. She followed the path she knew so well, but tonight, it felt transformed. Familiar landmarks seemed imbued with new significance. A patch of ancient ferns shimmered with an inner light she hadn't noticed before. The stream, usually babbling, now seemed to whisper a clearer, more melodic tune. Suddenly, a flash of brilliant sapphire light darted past her head. Lyra gasped, stopping short. It was a sprite-light moth, its wings shimmering with pure, concentrated moonlight. It hovered for a moment, its tiny jewel-like eyes seeming to study her, then flew a short distance ahead, paused, and looked back, as if urging her to follow. "Are you guiding me?" Lyra whispered, a thrill of wonder shooting through her. The sprite-light moth pulsed its wings in what seemed like an affirmative flutter, then zipped off again, its sapphire glow a beacon in the gentle darkness. Lyra followed, her heart beating a little faster now, a joyful rhythm. The moth led her off the familiar path, deeper into a part of the woods she hadn't explored in years, a dense thicket where the trees grew so close their branches intertwined like gnarled fingers. But even here, the moth navigated with ease, its light illuminating ancient, twisting roots that formed natural steps. The air grew thicker with the scent of old wood and blooming night flowers. After what felt like a long walk, but was probably only a short distance, the moth came to a halt. It hovered near a truly colossal tree, one Lyra had never seen before. It wasn't the whispering oak of her glade, but something even older, even grander. Its trunk was impossibly wide, its bark a tapestry of deep furrows and shimmering mosses. Its branches soared upwards, disappearing into the starlit canopy. And from within its massive trunk, emanating from a fissure deep within the bark, pulsed the brilliant, ethereal blue light. It was stronger here, clearer, a steady, rhythmic glow that seemed to breathe with its own life. The hum was almost a melody now, a soft, resonant chord that vibrated through the very air. Lyra approached the ancient tree, her hand outstretched, drawn by an irresistible force. The sprite-light moth settled gently on her shoulder, its tiny body vibrating with the same hum. As she reached the fissure, the blue light seemed to intensify, bathing her face in its gentle glow. It was like looking into a window made of pure magic. Deep within the opening, nestled among shimmering roots, lay not an artifact, but a pool. A pool of liquid starlight, swirling with the same vibrant blue. And from its surface, the melody finally rose, clear and pure. A sound that resonated not just in her ears, but in every cell of her body. It was the Luminous song. It was not a grand symphony, but a single, endlessly unfolding note. A sound so perfect and profound that it encompassed all others. It spoke of creation, of growth, of the quiet, enduring magic of the world. It was a lullaby, a call, a forgotten truth. And as she listened, transfixed, Lyra saw something begin to stir at the very bottom of the starlit pool. A faint, golden light began to bloom, rising slowly through the blue, like a tiny nascent sun. It pulsed, mirroring the larger light, and as it rose, it seemed to gather form, becoming clearer, sharper. It was a key. Not a metal key, but one forged of pure light, shimmering with intricate, glowing patterns. It rose from the depths of the pool, hovering just above the surface, pulsing with a gentle, inviting warmth. It seemed to wait for her, shimmering with an ancient promise. What? Lyra reached out her hand, her fingers trembling slightly, and gently closed them around the hilt of the luminous key. It was cool to the touch, yet vibrated with an incredible energy, a silent song that hummed through her palm. The sprite-light moth fluttered from her shoulder to perch on the key, its sapphire light merging with the golden glow. She held the key, the luminous song surrounding her, the vast ancient tree breathing around her. And she knew with an absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. The woods held more secrets, the song had more verses, and this key was meant to unlock something far grander than a simple door. Something awaited her, deeper still within the whispering woods and beyond. Something that had been sleeping and was now just beginning to stir. Its sapphire light merging with the golden glow. She held the key, the luminous song surrounding her, the vast ancient tree breathing around her. And she knew with an absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. The woods held more secrets, the song had more verses, and this key was meant to unlock something far grander than a simple door. Something awaited her, deeper still within the whispering woods and beyond. Something that had been sleeping and was now just beginning to stir. The key in her palm felt more alive than ever before. It wasn't just a piece of etched silver. It was a humming, vibrant thing, pulsing with a soft internal warmth that spread through her fingers, up her arm, and settled like a comforting glow in her chest. The sapphire embedded within it wasn't merely reflecting the light of the Lumina song. It seemed to draw it in, deepening its own hue, becoming a tiny swirling galaxy in miniature. The Lumina song, which had previously been a gentle ambient presence, now swirled around her with a new intensity. It wasn't louder, but it was richer, layering harmonies she hadn't noticed before, a deep, resonant hum like ancient roots, a sparkling trill like dewdrop fairies, and a soaring, ethereal melody that seemed to trace the path of the stars. It felt as though the very air around her was woven from strands of light and sound, each one responding to the key, to her presence, to the unfolding of destiny. The ancient tree, the heart of this sacred grove, responded in kind. Its colossal roots, which formed the very ground beneath her feet, began to thrum with a low, steady vibration, a silent heartbeat of the earth. Above her, the myriad leaves of its boundless canopy rustled not with wind, but with a collective knowing sigh, as if the tree itself was awakening, stretching its ancient awareness and guiding her onward. Its bark, usually still and silent, seemed to ripple with faint, golden patterns, like veins of living light coursing beneath its weathered skin. The key began to pull. It wasn't a forceful tug, but a gentle, insistent inclination, like a compass needle finding true north. It tilted her hand, guiding her gaze, and then her very steps, away from the sheltering embrace of the ancient tree, deeper into the verdant depths of the whispering woods. There was no discernible path where the key led her, no worn trail or marked passage. Instead, the forest floor itself seemed to subtly shift and arrange itself for her. Patches of moss, usually a soft, muted green, now glowed with a faint inner luminescence, illuminating the way forward. Clusters of tiny, bell-shaped fungi, previously camouflaged, pulsed with a soft violet light, like miniature lanterns hung along an unseen corridor. The very air, previously just fresh and green, now carried the intoxicating scent of night-blooming jasmine and damp earth, mingled with a faint metallic tang that hinted at raw magic. The whispering woods lived up to their name in a new, profound way. The rustling of leaves was no longer just the wind. It was a chorus of soft, unintelligible murmurs, like distant voices sharing ancient secrets. The sighing of the breeze through the branches carried echoes of forgotten melodies, harmonies that seemed to tug at the edges of memory. It wasn't spooky or menacing, but rather deeply enchanting, like stepping into a dream woven from the whispers of time itself. As she walked, she began to notice the true wonders of this enchanted forest. Trees with bark like polished moonstone gleamed softly in the perpetual twilight beneath the canopy. Their branches, instead of leaves, bore clusters of crystalline blossoms that chimed faintly with every gentle breeze, releasing motes of sparkling light into the air. Flowers unfurled petals of spun starlight, their centers holding tiny, swirling nebulae, Creatures of pure light and delicate shadow flitted past, moths with wings like stained glass, tiny deer with antlers woven from glowing vines, and birds whose songs were pure, liquid light. They were shy, observing her with wide, curious eyes, but never seeming afraid. The luminous song within her seemed to calm them, a shared language of light and wonder. The key remained her unerring guide. Its sapphire light pulsed brighter when she was on the correct trajectory, dimming ever so slightly if she veered off course, a subtle correction that kept her moving forward with unwavering purpose. And the luminous song, she realized, wasn't just ambient. It was responsive. When a particularly breathtaking sight filled her with wonder, the notes swelled into a magnificent crescendo of sparkling sound. When a moment of doubt flickered through her mind, a soft, reassuring harmony would embrace her, chasing away any hint of apprehension. She walked for what felt like both moments and an eternity, her senses overwhelmed by the sheer, unadulterated magic of her surroundings. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint, sweet scent of water and wet stone. The whispers of the woods grew more distinct, not as words but as a confluence of emotions and ancient memories, swirling around her. Finally, the trees began to thin, their glowing trunks parting like curtains to reveal a clearing. It was perfectly circular, bathed in an ethereal, silver-blue light that seemed to emanate from the very ground. In its center, nestled amongst smooth, moss-covered stones, was a cluster of springs. These were the Whispering Springs. Their waters weren't clear but swirled with iridescent colors, emerald green, sapphire blue, amethyst purple, and shimmering gold, constantly shifting and blending like liquid jewels. From these springs the true whispers originated, not just in the air but from the bubbling, churning waters themselves. They were not words one could understand, but rather a cascade of feelings, joy, sorrow, peace, wisdom, and an overwhelming sense of profound age. Echoes of ancient memories seemed to rise from the depths of the springs, fleeting images of forgotten sunrises, the laughter of long-gone beings, the slow growth of mountains, and the silent dance of stars. As she approached, the key in her hand vibrated with a new intensity, its sapphire glowing with a deeper, more urgent hue. The luminous song soared, its melody intertwining with the whispers of the springs, creating a harmony that felt both utterly new and impossibly ancient. From the shimmering surface of the central spring, a tiny form emerged. It was no bigger than her thumb, composed of pure shimmering light, with delicate gossamer wings that beat with the speed of a hummingbird. Its body pulsed with all the colors of the springs, and its eyes, two tiny emeralds, regarded her with an intensity that belied its size. A dewdrop sprite. Oh. It was shy at first, hovering just above the water, its delicate form almost invisible against the glittering backdrop. But the luminous song, a gentle lullaby now, seemed to draw it closer. It darted around her, a tiny beacon of light, before settling on the very tip of her outstretched finger. Its touch was lighter than air, a faint tingle of pure magic. The sprite didn't speak with words, but communicated through a series of vivid, shimmering images that blossomed in her mind. It showed her ancient roots delving deep into the earth, drawing sustenance from hidden reservoirs of magic. It showed her the springs as the eyes of the forest, seeing all that transpired, holding the memories of eons. Then, it showed her a path, not with a gesture, but with a brief, luminous vision, a winding trail through a dense, almost impenetrable part of the woods, where trees stood so close their branches were interwoven, forming a living, breathing labyrinth. Before it departed, the sprite performed a small, graceful dance on her fingertip, then pressed a tiny, shimmering bead of water onto her palm. It glowed with a soft internal light, like a miniature, perfectly spherical pearl. This, it conveyed, was a drop of insight, a gift from the Whispering Springs, to guide her way through shadows and illusions. With a final silent nod of its tiny head, the dewdrop sprite dissolved back into the shimmering waters, leaving only a faint, sweet scent of morning dew. Armed with the key, the luminous song, and the sprite's luminous gift, she pressed onward. The path the sprite had shown her was indeed different. The light of the clearing faded quickly behind her, and she entered what felt like a new realm within the woods, the veiled glade. Here, the trees grew impossibly close, their trunks thick and gnarled, their canopies so dense that only slivers of light managed to pierce through, dappling the forest floor in shifting patterns of gold and shadow. The air was thick and still, heavy with a different kind of magic, a profound sense of ancientness, of forgotten secrets held tightly within the embrace of the earth. There was a quiet solemnity here, a hushed reverence that seemed to demand silent contemplation. The drop of insight in her palm pulsed faintly, responding to the subtle magic of the glade. The path was not always clear. Sometimes, what appeared to be a sturdy trunk would shimmer and dissolve into mist as she drew near, only for a new, solid path to appear just to her left. The trees seemed to shift, their forms blurring at the edges of her vision, creating an intricate living maze. But the key was unwavering. Its sapphire light, now a steady beacon, seemed to cut through the veils of illusion. It revealed faint, almost invisible markings on the bark of certain trees, spirals of glowing moss, or patterns etched into the wood that only became visible when illuminated by its magic. The luminous song, too, was her ally, its melodies shifting to a lower, more resonant hum, guiding her through the intricate dance of light and shadow, highlighting the true path amidst the shimmering deceptions. She learned to trust her instincts, to feel the subtle pull of the key, and to listen to the silent guidance of the song. There were no dangers here, no monsters to fear, but the glade tested her perception, her patience, and her faith in the magic that surrounded her. Each step was a discovery, each illusion, a lesson in seeing beyond the surface. After what felt like a long passage through the heart of this ancient, shifting labyrinth, the trees finally began to part. Ahead, she saw a natural archway, formed by two colossal, intertwined trees, their bark like wrinkled wise faces, their branches reaching skyward as if in a perpetual embrace. This was no ordinary archway. It pulsed with a deep emerald light, and as she stepped beneath it, she felt a profound shift, a tingling sensation that ran through her entire being, as if she were passing through a gateway between worlds. Beyond the archway, she emerged into a sight that stole her breath and ignited a new, profound sense of wonder within her. It was a meadow, vast and open, but unlike any she had ever seen. The ground shimmered with countless flecks of starlight, as if 1,000 celestial bodies had shattered and become part of the very earth. Luminous flora grew everywhere, blades of grass that glowed with a soft internal light, flowers that pulsed like distant constellations, and towering crystalline reeds that chimed with a delicate, otherworldly music. Above, the sky was not blue, nor was it the deep twilight of the forest canopy. It was a deep, velvety indigo, utterly boundless, with a scattering of permanent shimmering stars, even though she felt no real sense of night or day. The barrier between worlds felt impossibly thin here, as if she stood on the very edge of the cosmos. This was the Starfall Meadow. A profound presence filled this place, a warmth and a resonant hum in the air that suggested immense power just beneath the surface. It was a feeling of deep peace, of ancient magic that had slumbered for ages and was now just beginning to awaken. The key in her hand pulsed fiercely, its sapphire light reflecting off the star-dusted ground, creating a dazzling array of sapphire points that danced around her feet. It was almost vibrating with anticipation, as if it recognized something incredibly significant here. In the center of the meadow, half hidden by shimmering, star-dusted vines, lay what appeared to be ancient ruins. Not ruins of crumbling stone, but of materials that seemed utterly alien and impossibly old. Structures that pulsed with a faint internal starlight, made of substance that seemed to absorb and emit light simultaneously. They were overgrown, yes, but their grandeur was undeniable, hinting at a civilization or purpose long forgotten, yet still echoing with power. As she drew closer, she noticed a particularly magnificent tree at the heart of the ruins. It was unlike any she had seen, even in these magical woods. Its trunk was not bark, but woven starlight, spiraling upwards into a canopy of pure glowing constellations. Its roots, exposed above the star-dusted earth, pulsed with the same indigo light as the sky above, radiating an incredible warmth. From the shimmering trunk of this star-elder tree, a form began to coalesce. It was tall and slender, with skin that glowed with a faint internal starlight and hair like spun moonlight. Its eyes were ancient, deep pools of cosmic dust and distant galaxies, filled with an unimaginable wisdom and a gentle, profound sadness. This was a star-elder, a guardian of this sacred place, a being woven from the very fabric of the Starfall Meadow. The star-elder didn't move, but its presence filled the meadow. It communicated not with words, but with a gentle, resonant hum that vibrated through the air, and a flow of images and feelings that blossomed directly into her mind, clear as crystal. "You have come, child of the song," the Star Elder conveyed, its voice a symphony of starlight and ancient memories. "Keke has awoken, and the sleeper stirs. Nadzina." It showed her visions of the world long, long ago, when magic flowed freely and openly, when the stars themselves sang. It showed her a time of imbalance when a great sorrow befell the land, and the heart of its magic, a radiant, pulsing crystal, the Athel core, began to dim, to retreat into slumber. It showed her ancient beings like itself, weaving a protective shroud of magic around it, hoping that one day, one chosen by the Lumina song, bearing the key, would come to reawaken it. "The Athel core sleeps beneath this meadow," the Star Elder revealed, its gaze sweeping over the shimmering ground. "It is not a monster but the very wellspring of creation, the heart of our world's magic. It has awaited your touch, the touch of the Lumina song, and the turning of the key. One ye want in steady once. The Star Elder then directed her gaze towards a specific point within the ruins, a place where the ancient star-flecked stones formed a sunken amphitheater, and in its center, a single, perfectly smooth obsidian-like pedestal pulsed with a faint, insistent light. "There," the Star Elder conveyed. "It there lies the threshold. The key is ready. The song is ready. And you, child of the song, are ready. Onanaini, edithinanin, tai." She looked at the pedestal, then back at the key in her hand, which was now vibrating with an almost unbearable intensity, its sapphire burning like a miniature sun. The Lumina song swelled around her, a chorus of encouragement, a promise of awakening. Her heart pounded with a mix of awe, trepidation, and a soaring sense of destiny. The journey through the whispering woods had led her here, to the very heart of its mystery, to the edge of something truly grand. She took a deep breath, the scent of starlight and ancient earth filling her lungs. The Ethel core, the wellspring of creation, awaited. The sleeping magic was about to stir, and she held the key to its awakening. The path ahead shimmered with untold possibilities, and her adventure truly was just beginning. Elara stepped forward, her bare feet pressing into a path that wasn't earth or stone, but solidified starlight. It shimmered with an inner luminescence, casting her silhouette in long dancing shadows that stretched towards the heart of the clearing. The air here was thin and sweet, tasting of ozone and wild mint, and it hummed with a low, resonant frequency that vibrated deep within her bones. It was the song of slumbering power, a lullaby whispered by the universe itself. Before her, at the very center of the clearing, stood the Athel core. It was not a single object, but a colossal formation of interconnected crystals, each facet gleaming with an internal shifting light. They spiraled upwards, a living cathedral of pure energy, reaching towards the unseen stars above. Some crystals were the color of deep amethyst, others pulsed with emerald fire, while still others shone with the ethereal glow of moonlight on ice. The entire structure thrummed with a dormant power, like a sleeping giant whose every breath sent ripples through the fabric of existence. Ancient runes, etched not by hand but by the slow dance of magic over eons, traced luminous patterns across its surface, swirling and intertwining in a silent, intricate language. She approached slowly, drawn by an invisible current. Her hand, almost without conscious thought, reached out. As her fingertips brushed against the cool, smooth surface of the nearest crystal, a spark of energy arced between her and the core. It wasn't painful, but exhilarating, like the first breath of crisp morning air after a long night. A warmth bloomed in her chest, spreading outwards, connecting her to the vastness of the core, to the very essence of creation that lay coiled within its depths. She felt a profound sense of belonging, as if she had finally come home after a journey she hadn't even known she was on. The hum intensified, a silent question reverberating in her mind. "Are you the one?" "Onin. Ninbae." Elara didn't speak, but her heart answered. Yes. She felt it with every fiber of her being. She was the one. The whispers of the whispering woods, which had guided her here, now coalesced into a clear, resonant melody in her memory. A forgotten song, ancient and pure, that spoke of starlight and root, of quiet earth and rising dawn. It was a song of awakening, and she realized with a jolt of understanding that this was her key. Not a physical object, but a resonant frequency, a vibrational harmony that only she could provide. She closed her eyes, letting the melody rise from deep within her. It began as a soft hum, a gentle vibration that mingled with the chore's own slumbering song. Then her voice, clear and pure, joined the chorus. The notes were not of any language she knew, yet they carried a profound meaning, a plea for light, a promise of renewal, a whisper of life returning. Her voice wove itself into the very fabric of the core, each note a thread of golden light binding her to its purpose. As she sang, the ethel core responded. The internal lights within the crystals began to pulse in time with her song, growing brighter, more urgent. The colors deepened, swirling like liquid rainbows within the crystalline structure. The hum deepened too, evolving into a mighty drone that resonated through the clearing, making the very air vibrate. Fine cracks of light, like veins of pure energy, began to spread outwards from the core, tracing intricate patterns across the starlight path, reaching towards the ancient trees that ringed the clearing. A gentle tremor began, not violent, but a rhythmic pulse that spread from the core through the ground. The trees around the clearing, ancient and gnarled, seemed to stir, their branches swaying even in the still air, their leaves beginning to glow with a faint inner light. The scent of ozone grew stronger, mingling with the earthy fragrance of awakening life. Elara continued to sing, her voice unwavering, pouring her entire being into the melody. She felt the core's energy flowing into her, and her own energy flowing back into the core, a symbiotic dance of magic and spirit. It was as if she was becoming one with the ancient wellspring, a conduit for its reawakening. Then, with a crescendo that swelled into a silent explosion of light, the ethel core truly awoke. A wave of pure, unadulterated magic erupted from its heart, not destructive, but breathtakingly beautiful. It wasn't a sudden burst, but a majestic slow-motion unfurling, like the petals of a cosmic flower. Tendrils of iridescent energy, shimmering with all the colors of the dawn and dusk, reached outwards, swirling into intricate patterns in the air, before dissolving into a fine, sparkling mist that rained down upon the clearing. This mist settled on Elara's skin, on the leaves of the trees, on the very ground, causing everything it touched to glow with a soft ethereal light. The air filled with a symphony of sounds, crystalline chimes, deep resonating tones like the heartbeat of the world, and the gentle, rustling whisper of countless awakened energies. The ethel core pulsed with a vibrant, living light, no longer dormant, but awake and brimming with power. Its colors shifted and flowed like molten jewels, casting magnificent, dancing shadows across the clearing. Elara gasped, her song ending on a note of pure wonder. She felt the magic flowing through her, not just around her. It was as if her senses had expanded 1,000-fold. She could hear the quiet murmur of the roots beneath the earth, the gentle sigh of the wind as it carried the pollen of unseen flowers, the distant, joyful chirping of night creatures whose senses had also been touched by the awakening. The scent of ancient earth was now laced with the fragrance of newly bloomed spirit blossoms, invisible to the eye but potent to the awakened senses. The clearing was utterly transformed. The starlight path now radiated with a steady, soft glow. The ancient trees, their leaves now shimmering with internal light, seemed taller, more vibrant, their gnarled branches reaching out like welcoming arms. Even the air itself felt alive, thick with invisible currents of magic, crackling with potential. As Elara stood there, bathed in the core's glorious light, a new presence began to manifest. From the very heart of the ethel core, where the light was brightest and most concentrated, a figure began to coalesce. First, a shimmering outline, then strands of pure light woven with delicate patterns of plant matter, like living vines intertwined with starlight. It grew, taking on a graceful humanoid form, tall and slender, with eyes that glowed with the wisdom of millennia. Its skin was like polished moonlight, its hair a cascade of luminous leaves and blossoms. This was no ordinary being. This was a luminary spirit, a guardian born of the core itself, awakened by Elara's song. The luminary spirit floated a few feet above the ground, its presence radiating immense calm and ancient power. It had no mouth, yet its voice resonated directly in Elara's mind, a melody of pure thought that was both gentle and profound. "You have come, Star Singer. You have awakened that which slumbered for ages untold." The words echoed with gratitude, yet Elara sensed a deeper undercurrent, a subtle hint of melancholy. I am Ilara, she whispered, her voice feeling small in comparison to the spirit's grandeur. I felt drawn here. I didn't know what I was doing, only that I had to sing. The luminary spirit inclined its head, a gesture of profound understanding. Your heart is pure, Ilara. Your spirit, unburdened. These were the true keys, the melody merely their expression. The ethel core hums with renewed life, a symphony of creation once silenced. For this we are grateful. A pause, heavy with unspoken meaning. Then the luminary spirit continued, its voice taking on a more serious tone. But the awakening is merely the beginning, Star Singer. The world has grown accustomed to the core's long slumber. Its magic, once a steady river, has been a trickling stream for centuries. Now, the river flows anew, vibrant and powerful. But the channels have narrowed, become overgrown, or even been diverged. Ilara listened, a knot forming in her stomach. She had thought her task was complete. What do you mean? The balance has shifted, Ilara. The core's magic in its dormancy left voids. Other energies, some harmonious, some discordant, filled those spaces. Now, with the core's full power unleashed, these imbalances are magnified. The very lines that once carried its essence throughout the world have grown weak or been corrupted. Some are overgrown with wild, uncontrolled magic. As the luminary spirit spoke, shimmering visions flickered in the air around them, fleeting glimpses of distant lands. Ilara saw ancient forests where trees glowed with an unsettling, unnatural intensity, their roots tearing through the earth. She saw parched deserts where the very ground seemed to crackle with static, devoid of life. She saw shimmering cities where magic pulsed with a frantic, uncontrolled rhythm, causing strange phenomena to ripple through the streets. Hugh awakened the Cora, Ilara. The spirit continued, the visions fading. No, you must guide its magic back into harmony. You must become the weaver, reconnecting the broken threads, pruning the wild growth, and nourishing the barren lands. The core's heart beats once more, but the world must learn to dance to its rhythm again. A new purpose, grander and more daunting than she could have imagined, settled upon Ilara's shoulders. She was not just the awakener but the conduit, the balance keeper. The thought sent a thrill through her, mingled with a healthy dose of trepidation. How do I do this? I'm just me. The luminary spirit offered a gentle, luminous smile. You are more than just you, Ilara. You are the Star Singer, the one whose spirit resonated with the core's own. Its magic now flows through you, not just around you. You will feel the whispers of the ley lines, the cries of the unbalanced lands. Your touch, your song, your pure intent will be the instruments of harmony. As if to demonstrate, the luminary spirit extended a hand, and from its palm, a tiny exquisite creature fluttered forth. It was like a miniature moth, but its wings were made of spun starlight, and its body glowed with a soft internal luminescence. It darted playfully around Ilara's head, leaving trails of faint, shimmering dust. This is a glimmering, Ilara, born of the core's first true breath. It will be your guide. It senses the flow of ley lines, the places where the core's magic needs its touch the most. Follow its light, and it will lead you to the first great task. The glimmering, no bigger than her thumb, landed gently on her outstretched finger, its tiny antennae twitching. It felt warm, and a faint, joyful hum resonated from it, a smaller echo of the core's own song. The luminary spirit pointed a luminous finger towards the edge of the clearing, towards a path that now seemed to glow faintly, winding deeper into the whispering woods, but in a direction Ilara hadn't explored before. Your journey begins anew, Star Singer. The first great nexus of imbalance lies deep within the Whispering Peaks, where the ancient ley line known as the Dragon's Breath has been choked by an overgrowth of feral magic. It radiates an unsettling energy, threatening to disrupt the very weather patterns of the lands beyond. Ilara looked from the tiny, luminous glimmerwing on her finger to the daunting path ahead, and then back to the magnificent, vibrant Ethel core. Its power was immense, almost overwhelming, but it was no longer a sleeping mystery. It was a living heart, beating in rhythm with her own. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but it was also exhilarating. She had awakened a sleeping world, and now she was its guide. She took a deep breath, the scent of fresh magic and ancient earth filling her lungs. The glimmerwing fluttered up from her finger, hovering expectantly, its light a beacon in the newly vibrant clearing. Elara nodded, a quiet determination settling into her heart. "I understand," she said, her voice stronger now, resonating with newfound purpose. "I will be the weaver." The luminary spirit offered another silent, grateful nod, its form slowly beginning to recede back into the brilliant light of the Athel core, its presence fading like mist into the dawn. Only its profound gratitude lingered in her mind. Elara turned, her gaze following the glimmerwing, which now hovered a little further down the glowing path, its light bobbing gently, beckoning her onward. The Whispering Woods, once a place of quiet mystery, now thrummed with a new, vibrant life, full of possibilities and challenges. Her adventure, truly, had just begun, a grand tapestry waiting to be rewoven by her own hands. Elara turned, her gaze following the glimmerwing, which now hovered a little further down the glowing path, its light bobbing gently, beckoning her onward. The Whispering Woods, once a place of quiet mystery, now thrummed with a new vibrant life, full of possibilities and challenges. Her adventure, truly, had just begun, a grand tapestry waiting to be rewoven by her own hands. The glowing path beneath her feet felt less like earth, and more like solidified starlight, warm and humming faintly. It wound deeper into the woods, past ancient oaks whose leaves now shimmered with an ethereal emerald glow, and through groves of silver-barked birches that seemed to hum a silent, joyful tune. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles, damp earth, and something indescribably sweet, like moon-dusted honey. The glimmerwing led her to a clearing where the trees parted to reveal a pond, its surface like polished obsidian reflecting the nascent dawn. But it wasn't the pond that caught her eye. It was a cluster of small moss-covered creatures huddled near the bank, their tiny luminous eyes wide with worry. They looked like miniature, animated piles of moss and twigs, each no taller than her knee, with delicate fern-like ears. "Oh, hello," Elara whispered, kneeling down. The glimmerwing circled overhead once, then settled gently on her shoulder, its light a comforting beacon. One of the moss creatures, slightly larger than the others, shuffled forward. "Kind weaver," it croaked, its voice like the rustle of dry leaves. "The pond of whispers, it is silent." Elara frowned. "Silent? But it looks so peaceful." "It is meant to sing," another tiny creature chimed in, its voice a high-pitched squeak. "The pond spirits, they are trapped. The weeping willow, she has grown too sad, her roots embrace them too tightly." Elara looked towards the enormous willow tree that leaned over the pond, its long trailing branches dipping into the water. Its leaves, unlike the vibrant greens around them, were a muted, sorrowful gray. A palpable sadness emanated from it. "We cannot approach her," the first moss creature explained. "Her sorrow is too great. It makes us sleep." Elara understood. The world's tapestry wasn't just torn. Some threads were tangled with sadness, others muted by fear. She carefully approached the weeping willow, feeling the wave of melancholy wash over her. It was a heavy, suffocating feeling, threatening to pull her into its depths. But the lingering gratitude of the Athel core, a warm glow deep within her heart, shielded her. It was a reminder of resilience, of the world's inherent magic. She reached out a tentative hand and touched the rough bark of the willow. "Gentle willow," she murmured, "why do you weep so?" A faint, mournful sigh seemed to ripple through the branches. "I yearn for what is lost," a thought whispered into her mind, not in words but in a feeling of deep ancient grief. In the song of the first dewdrop, carried by the pond spirits, it is gone. And with it, the joy of my youth. The song of the first dewdrop. A thread in the tapestry, lost. Elara looked at the pond, then at the tangled roots. The pond spirits, if they were trapped, must be the source of the pond's song. "Perhaps," Elara said, her voice soft but clear, "the song isn't lost, only forgotten. Perhaps it needs a new voice to remember." She closed her eyes, focusing on the warmth of the Athel core's memory within her. She thought of the vibrant greens and golds of the awakened forest, the gentle hum of magic. She began to hum a simple, soothing melody, one her grandmother used to sing, a lullaby of starlight and dew. As she hummed, she gently placed her hands on the willow's bark, imagining the light within her flowing into the tree. The glimmer ring on her shoulder pulsed softly, adding its gentle luminescence. Slowly, miraculously, the gray leaves of the willow began to regain a faint green hue. The crushing sadness lessened, replaced by a deep, quiet yearning. Then, Elara saw it. Nestled among the roots, shimmering faintly, were tiny, iridescent bubbles. These were the pond spirits. She carefully, gently began to untangle the roots, her touch as light as a butterfly's wing. It was slow work, but the willow, sensing her intention, seemed to relax its grip, allowing her to free them one by one. As each spirit was released, it rose from the water, a tiny orb of shimmering light, and began to dance in the air above the pond. And as they danced, they began to sing. It wasn't a loud song, but a delicate, bell-like chime, a melody of pure joy and crystalline beauty, the song of the first dewdrop restored. The weeping willow gasped, a rustle of its now vibrant green leaves. Its branches swayed, not with sorrow, but with a gentle, appreciative rhythm. The moss creatures cheered, their little bodies doing a joyous jig. "Thank you, kind weaver," the largest moss creature said, bowing deeply. "You have woven a lost song back into the world. Our names are the moss folk, and we shall guide you through the root-woven paths, should you ever need." Elara smiled, her heart lighter than before. She had rewoven a small thread, and the tapestry felt a little stronger. The glimmer wing fluttered up and circled her head, its light brighter than ever. "The tapestry needs more than songs, Elara," a new voice chimed, a voice like trickling water and rustling leaves. She looked up, and from the now verdant branches of the weeping willow, a small, lithe figure descended. It was a dryad, her skin like bark, her hair cascade of green leaves and delicate blossoms. Her eyes, the color of fresh moss, held ancient wisdom. "The Ethel core awakened you for a purpose," the dryad continued, landing gracefully beside her. "The world's magic, the very threads of its existence have grown thin in places, tangled in others. A great sorrow, a fading of memory, has crept through the lands. It began with the whispering woods, but it extends far beyond." "What must I do?" Elara asked, her voice filled with a newfound resolve. "You must find the heart of the world weaver's loom," the dryad explained, her gaze piercing. "It lies beyond the shimmering peaks, in the Valley of Echoes, guarded by the ancient spirits of creation. Only there can the true weaving begin. Only there can the discord be unraveled and the lost patterns restored." "But how do I get there?" The dryad smiled, a hint of ancient mischief in her eyes. "The path is long, and it requires more than just your light, Elara. It requires companions and the wisdom of the land itself. I am Lyra, and I shall guide you through the heartwood, where the roots remember the ancient ways." With Lyra, the dryad, and the ever-present Glimmerwing, Elara's journey continued. They ventured deeper into the whispering woods, which Lyra called the Heartwood. Here, the trees were so ancient and vast that their branches intertwined to form a perpetual twilight, pierced only by shafts of emerald light. Lyra taught Elara to listen to the silent hum of the roots, to understand the language of the rustling leaves, and to interpret the stories whispered by the wind. One day, as they navigated a particularly dense thicket of thorns that seemed to resist their passage, Lyra pointed. "There, a lost thread. The thorn-woven maze. It traps joy and replaces it with frustration." Elara saw that the thorns were not just physical barriers. They seemed to absorb the light, leaving the air heavy and dull. Within the maze, she heard faint whimpers. Something is trapped inside, she realized. Lyra nodded. The sparkle squeaks, playful sprites of light, lost their way here when the forest's joy began to dim. Their laughter is a vital thread in the tapestry, but the maze feeds on their despair. Elara knew she couldn't just cut through the thorns. That would cause more harm. She needed to understand the maze. She closed her eyes, reaching out with the sense of connection the Ethel core had left her. She felt the thorns, not as sharp points, but as confused, grasping entities, seeking something they couldn't find. They yearned for order, for clarity. "The maze isn't malicious," Elara mused, opening her eyes. "It's lost. It needs a pattern." Remembering the intricate patterns woven into her grandmother's tapestries, Elara began to walk, slowly, deliberately. She didn't force her way, but traced a path, humming a soft, rhythmic tune. She imagined the thorns aligning, forming a clear, flowing design. The glimmerwing pulsed gently, its light illuminating the way. As she moved, the thorns seemed to respond, their sharp points retracting slightly, their branches parting just enough to let her pass. She wasn't fighting them, she was guiding them. Lyra watched, impressed as Elara, with gentle persistence, wove a path through the heart of the maze. Deep within, they found a dozen tiny, shimmering sprites, no bigger than her thumb, huddled together, their light barely a flicker. Their tiny faces were etched with fear. "Hello," Elara whispered, holding out a hand. "You're safe now. The maze isn't angry, just confused." The sparkle squeaks, emboldened by her gentle voice and the light of the glimmerwing, tentatively approached. One, bolder than the rest, landed on her finger, its light brightening. Then, with a collective squeak of joy, they burst into a flurry of playful dances, their tiny lights filling the maze with a dazzling, kaleidoscope glow. Their laughter, like tiny bells, echoed through the now organized thorny paths. The maze itself seemed to shimmer, its thorns transforming into delicate rosy blossoms. "Another thread rewoven," Lyra smiled. "The laughter of the sparkle squeaks will guide travelers now, instead of trapping them." As they emerged from the heartwood, the terrain began to change. The dense forest gave way to rolling hills, covered in grass that swayed like emerald waves. This was the Shimmering Meadow, and it lived up to its name. Every blade of grass, every wild flower, seemed to catch and reflect the light in 1,000 tiny sparkles. But even here, there was a muted quality, a lack of the vibrant, dazzling energy Elara expected. "The meadow sprites," Lyra explained. "They paint the colors of the day, but their brushes are dry. The sunstone pools, which nourish their magic, have grown cloudy." The sunstone pools were scattered throughout the meadow, usually glowing with an inner warmth, but now they were dull, their waters murky. As they approached one, they heard a grumpy grumbling. From behind a particularly large sunstone, a creature emerged. It was a gnome, no taller than Elara's waist, with a long braided beard the color of dried hay and a perpetually furrowed brow. He clutched a small, ornate watering can. Another lost child?" he grumbled, eyeing Elara suspiciously. "No magic left for your kind here. The pools are dim, the colors are fading, and my prize-winning glowberries are barely glowing. It's all a mess, I tell you." "We're trying to help," Elara said gently. "I'm Elara, and this is Lyra, and my glimmerwing." The gnome squinted at the glimmerring. "A glimmerring, eh? Well, at least some light remains. I'm Barnaby, and I've been trying to clean these confounded pools for weeks, but the muck just keeps coming back." He gestured angrily at the cloudy water. Lyra explained the larger problem to Barnaby, about the fading tapestry in the heart of the World Weaver's loom. Barnaby listened, scratching his beard. "The heart loom, you say? Well, I suppose if the whole world's going to fade, my glowberries will too. All right, I'll help. But what about these pools?" Elara peered into the murky water. She saw faint, iridescent streaks within the cloudiness, like faded ribbons of light. "It's not muck, Barnaby," she realized. "It's forgotten light, the meadow sprite's forgotten dreams, perhaps, or the sunstone's own fading memories." She remembered the Ethel core's light, how it had brought clarity and vibrancy. She placed her hands into the pool, letting the residual warmth from the core flow through her. She focused on the concept of memory, of forgotten joy. She imagined sunlight, laughter, and the vibrant colors of a full rainbow. The glimmerwing hummed, its light intensifying. Slowly the murky water began to swirl, not with dirt, but with shimmering motes of light. The forgotten light, reawakened, began to rise, swirling like a gentle galaxy. The pool glowed, first faintly, then with a brilliant internal warmth, as if a small sun had been placed within it. The meadow sprites, tiny, translucent beings, emerged from the surrounding grass, their faded forms now vibrant and gleaming. They dipped their brushes into the revitalized pool, and with joyous chirps, began to paint the meadow with dazzling hues. The grass shimmered with renewed brilliance, and Barnaby's glowberries pulsed with an almost blinding light. "By the beard of the great oak!" Barnaby exclaimed, his scowl replaced by a wide, astonished grin. "You did it! The pools are clear!" My glowberries, they're magnificent." He looked at Ilara with new respect. "All right, Ilara, Lyra, Glimmerwing, Count Barnaby in. I know these lands like the back of my hand, and I've got a cart that can get us over the rocky bits faster." With Barnaby and his surprisingly sturdy, moss-covered cart, pulled by 2 docile, shaggy sheep-goats, their journey became a little easier, and certainly more colorful. Barnaby, despite his gruff exterior, was a fount of knowledge about the land, its hidden paths, and its curious inhabitants. He complained incessantly, but his actions always spoke of a kind heart. They traveled for many days, through the whispering woods, past the shimmering meadow, and finally, towards the formidable crystal peaks. These mountains rose like jagged shards of pure quartz, glinting with every shift of light, their peaks piercing the clouds. "The crystal peaks," Lyra announced, "are where the world's intentions are clarified, but lately, the echoes of confusion have grown strong. The crystal harps, which sing the clarity of purpose, are silent." As they ascended the winding crystalline paths, the air grew colder and sharper. The silence here was profound, unnerving. Ilara could feel the confusion Lyra spoke of, a scattered restless energy, like 1,000 unfinished thoughts. Suddenly, a shimmering mist swirled around them, coalescing into a shimmering, translucent figure. It was a spirit, tall and slender, with eyes like polished amethyst, but filled with a deep, unsettling anxiety. "Lost! Lost! The way is lost," the spirit moaned, its voice like the chime of distant bells, but discordant. "Too many paths, too many choices. The harmony is broken." "A spirit of clarity," Lyra whispered, overwhelmed by the world's indecision. Ilara looked at the spirit, then at the vast echoing canyons of crystal. She understood. The world wasn't just losing its joy and memory, it was losing its direction, its sense of purpose. "We need to find the crystal harps," Ilara declared. "They will bring harmony back." Cat. Barnaby, surprisingly, had an idea. "Aye, the harps are usually in the highest grotto, where the wind sings clearest, but the way there is a maze of mirrored caves, reflecting every doubt and fear." "Then we shall face the reflections," Ilara said, taking a deep breath. She felt the strength within her, the quiet determination that had grown with every rewoven thread. They entered the maze of mirrored caves. Every surface was a perfect reflection, not just of themselves, but of their deepest uncertainties. Ilara saw herself as small and lost, Lyra as a withered branch, Barnaby as a tiny, insignificant pebble. The spirit of clarity, who had hesitantly joined them, saw endless versions of itself, each one more confused than the last. "Don't look at the reflections," Ilara urged. "Look within. Remember your true self. The reflections are just echoes, not reality." She focused on the warmth of the Athol core, the feeling of purpose it had imbued within her. She knew who she was, a weaver of light, a restorer of the world. She held the glimmering up, its steady light piercing the illusions. Lyra focused on her connection to the ancient trees, Barnaby on the solid earth beneath his feet, and the warmth of his glowberries. The spirit of clarity, seeing Ilara's unwavering resolve, began to calm, its form growing more solid. Ilara then began to sing, not a lullaby this time but a song of purpose, a melody of unwavering direction. She imagined the fragmented light in the caves coalescing, forming a single, clear path. The reflections began to shimmer, then fade, replaced by the true crystalline beauty of the caves. They found the grotto. 5 enormous harps, carved from pure resonant crystal, stood silent, their strings dull and unmoving. "They need wind," Lyra observed. "The wind that carries clarity of thought, but the winds here are scattered." Ilara approached the largest harp. She placed her hands on its crystal frame, closing her eyes. She focused on the spirit of clarity beside her, on its desire for harmony. She imagined all the scattered intentions of the world, all the fragmented thoughts, coming together, aligning, like separate threads merging into a single strong chord. She then took a deep breath, and gently blew across the strings. It was a soft breath, but it carried the concentrated essence of her newfound purpose, amplified by the Athol core's lingering power. A single, pure note resonated, deep and clear, echoing through the grotto. Then another, and another. The other harps responded, and soon, A magnificent symphony of crystal music filled the air, the song of clarity, a melody of unwavering purpose. The scattered winds outside the grotto gathered, forming a clear, steady current that flowed into the grotto, playing the harps with joyful precision. The spirit of clarity shimmered, its form now perfectly defined, its eyes shining with serene understanding. The path is clear, it chimed, its voice now harmonious and strong. The Valley of Echoes awaits, Elara, and the heart of the world weaver's loom. With the harp singing their eternal song, providing a beacon of purpose, the journey to the Valley of Echoes became swifter. Barnaby's cart, now pulled by two newly energetic sheepgoats, practically bounced over the crystal paths. The spirit of clarity, now called Lumina, floated beside them, its presence a calming, guiding force. They descended from the crystal peaks into a vast, bowl-shaped valley. The air here was strangely still, the light muted. Echoes indeed. Every sound they made seemed to linger, to repeat, to twist and distort before fading. It was a place of fading memories, forgotten dreams, and lingering shadows. "This is it," Lyra whispered, her voice almost lost in the echoes. The Valley of Echoes, and there, at its center, Elara saw it. A colossal, ancient tree, unlike any she had ever seen. Its trunk was gnarled and thick, almost like woven roots, reaching up to support branches that spread wider than 100 houses. But its leaves were not green or gold. They were a dull, dusty gray, and many branches were barren like bleached bones. It was the world weaver's loom, and it looked terribly, terribly tired. At its base, a pool of shimmering dark water pulsed faintly. This was the heart of the loom, where the threads of creation converged. But the pool was not vibrant. It was clouded with swirling shadows, like ink diffusing in water, twisting the reflections of the ancient tree into distorted, sorrowful shapes. "The loom is broken," Barnaby muttered, his usual grumbling replaced by genuine sadness. "The threads are tangled and frayed. The shadows, they're too strong." Elara felt the weight of it all, the world's fading magic, its forgotten songs, its lost purpose. She looked at the gray leaves of the loom, the swirling shadows in the pool. This wasn't a battle to be won with strength, but a mending to be done with understanding. "The shadows aren't evil," Elara realized, her voice echoing faintly. "They are just neglected, the forgotten dreams, the unspoken fears, the quiet sorrows of the world. They've gathered here, and without light, they've grown into this." Lumina, the spirit of clarity, shimmered. Indeed, the loom weaves all things, light and shadow. But when the light of intention fades, the shadows grow disproportionately. Elara approached the loom, her heart filled with a quiet reverence. She placed her hands on the ancient, gnarled trunk. She could feel the world's pulse, faint and weary, beneath her fingertips. The ethel core's lingering warmth within her pulsed strongly now, guiding her. She closed her eyes, and the glimmering, sensing the profound moment, flew from her shoulder and hovered above the heart of the loom, its light expanding, growing brighter and brighter, pushing back against the encroaching gloom. Elara focused. She didn't try to dispel the shadows, but to understand them. She reached out with her mind, with her heart, and connected with the ancient tree, with the very fabric of the world. She felt the forgotten lullabies, the muted laughter, the lost adventures, the quiet fears that had gathered, unacknowledged, in this place. She began to sing. Not a specific song, but a melody woven from all the rewoven threads. The gentle hum of the weeping willows restored joy. The playful laughter of the sparkle squeaks, the vibrant colors of the revitalized sunstone pools, the clear, purposeful notes of the crystal harps. She wove in the gratitude of the ethel core, the wisdom of Lyra, the steadfastness of Barnaby, the clarity of Lumina, and the unwavering light of the glimmering. She poured all of herself into the song, into the act of remembrance and acceptance. She imagined the threads of the world, not just bright and joyful, but also the deep, rich hues of sorrow, the shimmering silvers of fear, all woven together, not fighting, but complementing, creating a tapestry of profound depth and beauty. The shadows were not enemies, they were essential parts of the whole, needing only to be acknowledged and integrated. As her song swelled, the gray leaves of the world weaver's loom began to stir. A faint, emerald glow spread from her hands up the trunk and along the barren branches. The dust of ages seemed to fall away, The ancient tree began to hum, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the valley. The swirling shadows in the heart of the loom's pool did not vanish. Instead, they began to coalesce, to take on form and definition. The dark, murky water transformed into a swirling tapestry of cosmic colors, deep indigo, shimmering violet, rich crimson, each shadow thread finding its rightful place, adding depth and contrast to the vibrant light. The pool now reflected the tree, not as a sorrowful, twisted image, but as a magnificent, living entity, its leaves bursting forth in every shade of green, gold, and bronze. The echoes in the valley softened, no longer distorted, but harmonized, repeating Elara's song in a gentle, reassuring chorus. The World Weaver's loom, now vibrant and alive, stood majestic, its branches reaching for the sky, laden with leaves that shimmered like woven starlight. The air was filled with a gentle, joyful hum, the sound of the world's tapestry being woven anew. Every thread in its rightful place, every color brilliant, every shadow acknowledged and integrated. Elara stood before the revitalized loom, breathless, exhausted, but filled with an overwhelming sense of peace and accomplishment. The Ethel Core's presence within her was no longer a lingering warmth, but a quiet, steady glow, perfectly integrated into her own being. She was no longer just a girl who had found a magical artifact. She was a true weaver, a guardian of the world's balance. Lyra approached, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "You have done it, Elara," she whispered. "You have woven the world whole again." Barnaby, surprisingly silent, simply nodded, a look of profound wonder on his face. Lumina shimmered, its light radiating serene clarity. The glimmering, its task complete, gently landed on Elara's outstretched hand, its light now a soft, comforting beacon, no longer needing to shine so brightly. Elara looked out at the Valley of Echoes, which was now the Valley of Harmony, its air filled with the quiet music of a balanced world. She had started as a girl searching for a missing piece, and now she had become the one who mended the world itself. Her adventure, though grand, had led her not to a throne or to power, but to a deeper understanding of connection, empathy, and the quiet magic that lay within all things. She knew her place now. She would not return to her village in the same way, for she carried the wisdom of the loom, the song of the world, within her heart. She would become a quiet guardian, a whisperer of lost songs, a mender of tangled threads. She would walk the paths of the world, listening, watching, ready to offer a gentle touch, a soothing hum, whenever a thread began to fray. As the first stars began to twinkle in the newly vibrant sky above the World Weaver's loom, Elara leaned against the ancient tree, feeling its gentle, living pulse. The glimmerwing nestled into her hair, its soft glow illuminating her peaceful smile. The world was safe, vibrant, and whole. And Elara, the weaver, was finally home. She closed her eyes, a soft, contented sigh escaping her lips, ready for the gentle sleep that awaited her, filled with dreams of shimmering threads and harmonious songs.